artists play with horror, it becomes the kind of fear that seeps into your soul. So on Reddit, there's an image that ranks the most unsettling paintings in the world, from Edvard Munch's The Scream all the way to a Chinese artist many foreigners call the most disturbing Chinese artist. That chart has 8 layers. So in this episode, we're going to track down these masters' horror-filled artworks and appreciate them up close. This painting blew up online, and it even has a matching emoji. But a lot of people don't actually know what the figure in the painting is afraid of. In a diary entry dated January 1892, Edvard Munch, the creator of The Scream, wrote, "One evening, I was walking along a path. On one side was the city, on the other side, the fjord. I was exhausted and felt unwell, so I stopped and looked out over the fjord. Under the sunset, the clouds were dyed blood red. I sensed a scream pierce through nature itself, so I painted this picture, painting the clouds the color of blood. That color looked like it was screaming. So what the person in the painting fears is that scream that cuts through heaven and earth. And look at the expression. It's not him screaming, he's covering his ears in terror. But most people probably can't truly relate to the artist's fear because Munch's family had a history of mental illness. When he wrote, exhausted and unwell, it was because he had just been to a psychiatric hospital to visit his sister. Now, this next piece comes from the Spanish surrealist master, Dali, painted in 1940. The Spanish Civil War had just ended, and World War II was about to erupt. In the painting, a twisted human head stands in a barren desert. Venomous snakes coil around it, and inside every hollow of the skull, more skulls are nested, like endless Russian dolls, as if it could go on forever. The point of this painting was to make more people feel the terror of war, and then force them to think. But what's even scarier is the story behind it. The owner, Sean Robinson, said he inherited it from his grandmother, and she told him that when the artist painted it, he mixed his own blood into the paint. Not long after finishing the piece, the artist died. After Robinson brought it home, strange things started happening constantly, doors closing on their own, weird, painful groaning sounds, and he even documented it all. The remaining paintings don't feel that terrifying to me, so I'll bundle them together and go through them quickly. Dante and Virgil was painted by the French artist William Adolphe Bouguereau in 1850. It depicts a scene from the Divine Comedy. Dante and Virgil witness 2 souls fighting, Judith beheading Holofernes, a work by Caravaggio. It illustrates a story from the Bible. Basically, a widow takes down a general after dinner. The Flaying of Marsyas is by the 16th century Italian master Titian. It comes from Greek mythology. In short, he lost a flute contest, and a god had him killed. Still Life with Masks 3, a 1911 work by German artist Emil Nold. It portrays the anxious, restless inner world of city people. If you can read the vibe, yeah, it really does feel like that. Now we're getting to the first real one. Hands Resist Him. This was painted in 1972 by the American artist Bill Stoneham. It shows a little boy standing beside a girl doll. Behind them, in a dark room, countless hands are pressed against a glass window. The artist explained it like this: the girl doll is guiding the boy across the boundary between reality and fantasy, and those hands represent the different life paths the boy might face. This painting isn't just creepy. The bigger issue is, people say it might be unclean. Not long after it was sold, an elderly couple in California put it online to resell it, and they were shockingly honest, saying the figures in the painting move. They even claimed that once, the little boy tried to escape from the painting, and the girl doll threatened them with a gun. They also said the painting brought misfortune, that anyone who saw it would be cursed and constantly have nightmares. Later, Bill Stoneham had to come forward to clarify. The girl doll isn't holding a gun at all, so there's no way she could be pointing one at anyone. But here's the part that really fuels the legend. The gallery owner who once exhibited this painting and the very first artist who reviewed it both died within a year of coming into contact with it. So the rumor that this painting is not clean only spread further and further. Next is the second painting, Anatomy Fragments. The content of this one is very simple. It's basically a few severed arms, but the story behind it hits a lot deeper. In 1816, the French Navy's frigate Méduse ran aground and sank off the coast of Africa. The 135 surviving crew members and passengers were crammed onto a makeshift raft. They drifted at sea for 12 days. During that time, they endured extreme hunger and despair. To stay alive, they eventually resorted to cannibalism. When the raft was finally found, only a little over a dozen people were still alive. And this horrific, inhumane story shocked all of France at the time. When Jericho heard about it, he was like, "This is terrifying. I have to see this for myself." So first, he went to a hospital to interview the survivors. Then he personally went to the morgue. He spent day after day, surrounded by corpses and body parts, studying them, staring them down, trying to understand them, pushing himself to paint everything as realistically as possible. For the remaining paintings, I'll still keep it brief. The man mocked by 2 women. Some people interpret it like this: Goya painted it late in life because the women in the picture were prostitutes, mocking him for being useless. If that's true, yeah, That's deeply unsettling. The Ghost of a Flea is a miniature painting by the British artist William Blake. He claimed that since childhood, he could see things like that, and the creature in the painting was something he watched and painted firsthand. He even said they talked, like, "How did you turn into a flea ghost?" And it replies, "Because I was human in my last life, so I can't stop craving blood." Honestly, this flea ghost has a weird sense of humor. Heads Severed by the Guillotine, a work by the hardcore Jericho. After witnessing an execution, he was so shaken that he went straight to the morgue to paint what he saw, a true regular at the morgue. Next, a study inspired by Velázquez, Portrait of Pope Innocent X. This one is by the master of the uncanny, Francis Bacon. Some interpret it as a challenge to religious authority, but in my opinion, he just wanted to scare people. And then there's Guernica, a world-famous Picasso painting, and one of the most iconic anti-war artworks in history. But honestly, I feel like for most of us, when we look at surrealist and cubist works like this, we rely entirely on interpretation. So this time, no interpretation. Let's just look at it and see if you can feel the horror on your own. An artwork by the American painter Andy Warhol. Its original purpose was to condemn New York State's death penalty system at the time. So what you see in the painting is a terrifying execution device. But Louis XVI might have thought that this wasn't exciting enough. Girl Wearing a Death Mask, a work by the legendary Mexican painter Frida Kahlo. The girl is wearing a Day of the Dead mask. When Kahlo painted this, she had just suffered a miscarriage, and she was in immense pain. So that emotion, that grief, seeps straight into the artwork. This is a 1864 painting by the British animal artist Edwin Henry Landseer. It shows two polar bears feeding on the remains of explorers. His inspiration came from the 1845 disappearance of Franklin's Arctic expedition. And here's the unsettling part. There's a rumor that any student who looks at this painting is guaranteed to fail their exam. Some even claim a student suddenly stabbed himself in the eye with a knife, saying the polar bears told him to do it. If you're a student watching this right now, you're probably shaking already, right? Relax, it's fake, just a rumor. Next, this is an expressionist work created in 1996 by the Ukrainian painter Fania Jet. It's highly artistic, but Jet once said that while painting it, she constantly felt like someone was watching her, and the brush in her hand seemed to move on its own out of her control. A woman bought this painting, but just 2 weeks later, she returned it. Her reason, after bringing it home, she kept feeling like someone else was always nearby. She could never truly relax. 2 more buyers came later, and both returned it as well, for almost the exact same reasons. So the legend goes, if you stare at this painting long enough, it triggers fear, nightmares, pain, and other negative emotions. The next few paintings will still be quick, simple intros. Ivan the Terrible Kills His Son, by the Russian painter Ilya Repin. It shows Ivan IV, in a burst of rage, killing his son, and then drowning in regret afterward. The Drowning Dog, a late work by the Spanish painter Goya. At the time, he was being crushed by illness and by social upheaval, so the dog in the painting may be a metaphor for himself. The Great Red Dragon and the Beast from the Sea. This one is by the British artist William Blake. It depicts a scene from the Book of Revelation, David with the Head of Goliath, a work by Caravaggio. It tells a story from the Old Testament. The 3rd of May 1808 is a work Goya painted in 1814. It shows the Spanish people resisting Napoleon's army, a famous anti-war painting. Now next up is a painting called Sahibi Saburo Murders Oki by the 19th century ukiyo-e master Tsukioka Yashitoshi. Late period ukiyo-e, honestly, is naked, brutal aesthetics, a beauty built from violence. From the final years of the shogunate to the Meiji Restoration, social order collapsed, and everything was filled with turmoil and bloodshed. So ukiyo-e also evolved into themes like cruelty prints and blood and gore prints. The second painting, Gallowgate's Pig Fat. This is a 1995 work by the Scottish painter Ken Curry. It really does look unsettling, but compared with some earlier pieces, it doesn't seem like it belongs this deep on the chart until you hear the artist's explanation. Curry said his inspiration came from the city and from the cruel lives of the poor. It symbolizes the lower class, struggling just to survive. Put simply, Curry believed the underclass live like ghosts. Next are the remaining works from level 5 of the iceberg chart. The Smiling Spider is a lithograph by Odilon Redon. Uncanny Valley Vibes, 1848 Civil War Souvenir, was created by Jean-Louis Eugene Meissonier. It brutally recreates the horror of Paris streets back then, soldiers slaughtering insurgents. The Accursed Damned is a classic work painted by Peter Paul Rubens in 1620. It depicts a scene in hell, so the feeling it gives you is like you've just arrived somewhere new, and everything about this place feels wrong. This was painted not long after World War II ended, so many people believe it's a metaphor for politics and war. This is a work by the German surrealist painter Otto Rapp. His art mostly explores consciousness, dreams, and philosophy, blending decay, distortion, and alienation with things that look normal, creating a deeply unsettling kind of beauty. At first glance, it's scary, but after staring for a while, I start to feel like the painting is expressing something deeper underneath. The remaining paintings, the hypercubic crucifixion is a work Salvador Dali created in 1954. Miss Muriel Belcher is a work Francis Bacon created in 1959, and it's also one of his creepiest paintings. Jack the Ripper's Bedroom is a work by Walter Richard Sickert, set against the backdrop of a famous true crime case. This next painting is a 1869 work by the French painter Henri Regnault. On the surface, it shows the Moors as bloodthirsty and brutal, executing their own people on a whim. But what it really reveals is the prejudice Europeans had toward the Eastern world back then, because that image wasn't even the truth. This is a work by the Russian-American artist Pavel Chelichu, also a surrealist piece. At first glance, the colors feel hypnotic. Look closer and it's full of monsters, tons of babies, decaying creatures, and more. The whole thing carries this cold, eerie atmosphere. No wonder it's called hide and seek. The longer you stare, the more horror you start to notice. The next few pieces, The Judgment, a work by the American sci-fi artist Wayne Barlow. This is the Western imagination of hell. Since he's a sci-fi artist, why not paint AI judging humanity instead? Vanina, an Australian Aboriginal rock painting. Some people analyze it and claim it's an alien. Hand Cave, a heritage site in Argentina, with dense red handprints all over the rock wall. The Broken Column, a self-portrait by the Mexican painter Frida Kahlo. She suffered a severe traffic accident at 18, so many of her paintings are displays of pain. I and the Village, by the Belarusian-French painter Marc Chagall, a 1911 work, showing a folk legend from somewhere in Eastern Europe. And now we're entering the final layer of the iceberg chart, Level 8. The first piece in Level 8, The Theater of Death, by the American contemporary photographer Joel Peter Witkin. Pay attention, this guy isn't a painter, he's a photographer. He carefully arranges limbs and heads, places them on fruit plates, and photographs them as art. Just imagine the scene when he was setting that up. Honestly, it's terrifying enough on its own. Yang Xiaobin's art. Yes, this artist is Chinese. And don't say we're winning big, because I didn't rank this. The iceberg chart is arranged exactly like this. As for Yang Xiaobin's work, the reviews aren't exactly kind. But coming from the same cultural background, we can probably feel the emotions he's trying to transmit.